Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for your word. We thank you for singing that we heard this morning. We thank you for your love.
主，我哋感謝你賜俾我哋嘅話語，我哋亦都係感恩啊！我哋係可以歌唱嚟到去感恩你對我哋嘅愛。
Pray that this time you would receive the glory, that we would worship you well.
主，我哋求你咧係接納我哋你嘅我哋賜俾我哋嘅歌唱求你得到榮耀。
Pray these things in Jesus' name.
呢啲就奉主耶穌得聖靈求，阿門。好，大家清楚。
All right. Well, good morning. Hi, Joseph.
早晨。
All right. Over the last several really months, when I've had the opportunity to speak, we've been in the book of Ephesians.
嗱，咁喺即係上幾次啦，我有機會正道嗰個時候咧，我哋都喺以弗所書裏邊嘅。
All right, and we've been moving through Ephesians really slowly, and I realize that. So let's review just a little bit.
嗱，咁我亦都知道咧，其實我係真係喺以弗所書裏邊咧，都係慢慢嘅，所以咧，而且都係有一段時間啦。咁所以咧，我而家係溫下書先啦，我哋。
We've looked at what the book of Ephesians is about, how it's divided, that we are who you are as a Christian, and then how to live as a Christian.
嗱，咁我哋首先啦，都係已經介紹嗰陣時咧，我哋已經分析咗啦。以弗所書係分兩段嘅，咁1至3嗰度咧係教我哋咧點樣作為基督徒嘅，或者係基督徒是誰啦。咁之後4至6嗰度咧係話俾你聽，我哋應該點樣嚟活着嘅。
And we've really been focusing on the theme of how we are to live, or as Paul says, how you are to walk.
咁我哋嘅主題咧，其實都係重要嗰個概念咧，都係圍繞住係我哋應該點樣活着啦。尤其是咧用咗一個字眼咧係英文咧係即係個概念咧係點樣行出呢條路嘅。
All right, and we've talked about a lot of things, and we've seen a lot of different early topics. But this morning, what I want to do is to focus on the how, really the heart of how we walk as children of light, or walk in wisdom.
咁我都即係已經講咗好多唔同嘅題目啦，但係咧今日咧，我想注重咧係點樣，我哋點樣嚟活出呢個作為神嘅兒女嘅生命。
And the answer of how do we do these things, how can I actually live how Paul is saying we are to live, is found in verse 18.
嗱，咁喺度咧，去到呢一刻啦，咁我哋係要學習我哋點樣嚟活出與福音相稱嘅生活咧，就個重點咧就喺18度嗰度啦，18嗰個就係關鍵一句啦。
It says, you can walk worthy, you can walk as children of light, you can be humble, but you've got to be filled with the Spirit.
嗱，咁其實呢度咧就係教咗我哋啦。嗱，你可以有一個虔誠嘅生命啦，有一個活潑嘅生命，但係咧最主要嘅重點咧，你係要乜嘢啊？點樣得到咧？係要被聖靈充滿啦。
There's no way for me to live the way that Paul is saying we are to live if I try to do it by my own strength. 其實
保羅所形容我哋需要活出呢個生命咧，如果我哋係靠自己咧，係做唔出嘅。我哋係要依靠聖靈嘅。
Just a few verses back in verse 15, it says, "See that you walk circumspectly, not as fools, but as the wise."
嗱，即係喺18之前啦，15嗰度再提一提大家，我哋係要點樣啊？謹慎地行啦，而且唔係好似一個愚昧人嘅，我哋相反地咧，要一個智慧智者咁樣嚟行嘅。
It would be foolish of me to think I can do this, I can live the right way by my own strength.
嗱，其實如果我哋思想話，如果我係透過自己嘅能力，透過自己嘅思想而活着咧，而活出呢個保羅所形容嘅生命咧。我哋就其實咧，相反地咧，唔係一個智者，我哋係一個愚昧嘅人嚟嘅。
But if you try to live for God in your own strength, it becomes very clear very quickly that we can't do this on our own.
如果我哋其實咧，如果我哋想透過即係活出呢個保羅所形容啦，神所喜悅嘅生命，如果我哋就透過自己嘅能力嚟睇咧，我哋好快會發現咧係做唔到嘅。
So that's why I think Paul this is an encouraging thing, whereby Paul adding,but be filled with the Spirit.
其實呢個係俾我哋一個好好嘅鼓勵嚟嘅。佢話俾我哋聽咧，嗱，你唔係需要自己嚟行呢啲事情，相反地咧，你係要依靠聖靈充滿先至做到嘅。
But what does that really mean? What does it mean to be filled with God's Spirit?
但係嗰個問題就出現啦。咁其實呢個被聖靈嘅充滿嘅思想係究竟係咩嘢嚟嘅咧？
And I think this could be confusing because there are some who say, well, the filling of the Spirit, that's like an experience that you have. You have this really like emotional or spiritual experience, and that's what that's a filling of the Spirit means.
嗱，咁其實咧呢度咧就好似令人好多問題出現啦。佢有啲人咧就以為咧被聖靈充滿咧就係一個好驚人嘅屬靈體驗啦，即係哇好係好多唔同嘅感覺感受咁樣嚟出嚟，其實咧呢個又唔係喎。
It's like it's really like, wow, this is great. I have the Spirit of God, and I just have to do something.
係啦，咁即係好似覺得哇，好似捉咗電咁樣嚟，哇要好有係咁，唔係咁樣樣。
But then on the other side of that coin, there are people who say, well, the filling of the Spirit of God it's real, and you have to be filled with the Spirit, but let's not go overboard on this Spirit-filled.
咁亦都有另一個，嗰個係一個極端啦。另一個極端咧就係一個彭坦單言咁樣就係啊，你哋每一個人咧都要有聖靈嘅充滿啊。咁當你有聖靈嘅充滿嘅時候咧，咁就係啱㗎啦。咁樣亦都唔係咁樣樣嘅喎。
So there's these drastically different views of what this means to be filled with the Spirit.
其實咁，所以咧，我哋係睇到好似一個極端，兩個極端喺度出現咗喎。
Here's the thing, though. The filling of the Spirit is a profound reality, but it does have an effect on how I live my life.
嗱，其實係呢個被聖靈充滿係當然啦，係一個好宏偉、好偉大嘅思想。但係咧，唔單止係一個思想，亦都係對我哋生命每一日係可以應用嘅。
This morning, all we're going to do is just look at this command to be filled with the Spirit.
嗱，今朝我哋淨係睇一段呢個重點咧，就係被聖靈充滿啦。
But really, this is a requirement for us. This is not an option. This is not okay if you want to be filled with the Spirit.
嗱，呢句係一個命令嚟嘅，呢個係一個必要嘅命令嚟嘅。呢個唔係話我想就 OK 啦，或者睇下有得選擇啦。呢個唔係可選嘅嚇。
Now, it's a requirement, I think, because we need it. We can't live how Paul has been describing if we don't have God's Spirit.
嗱，呢個係必要嘅原因係因為我哋唔能夠活出得到神喜悅嘅生命。如果我哋如果我哋唔活出透過聖靈嘅咧，我哋係活出唔到呢個，所以係必要嘅。
I think it's also worth noting that we don't read, hey, if you want to be an extra spiritual Christian, well, then you need God's Spirit.
嗱，我哋亦都喺度睇到咧，佢唔係話嗱，如果你想做一個超級嘅基督徒或者超級虔誠嘅基督徒咧，你就先至係需要呢個被聖靈充滿嘅。
Being filled with the Spirit isn't just for, the pastor and for the people who serve in the church. This is for every single one of us.
佢嘅重點係話俾你聽咧，呢個被聖靈充滿咧，唔係淨係留俾牧師或者係其他侍奉嘅弟兄姊妹嘅導師。其實我哋每一個人在座所有嘅弟兄姊妹咧，係都要需要呢樣嘢嘅。
So let's specifically talk then about this filling.
好啦，咁我哋就首先講一講關於呢個字眼啦，充滿嘅字眼啦。
Several things for us to note. There it is. Every Christian possesses the Spirit. Is that?
Yeah, you probably have to click twice to get the Chinese out, and it's tiny, my
Sorry
friend.
about that. That was my mistake. That was my mistake. I made this font too small.
No worries, we'll adjust that. 如果大家睇到嘅話咧，就係每位基督徒咧係擁有聖靈嘅。
The Spirit is part of, basically, the Spirit is indwelling every Christian.
嗱，最主要咧呢個係話俾你聽咧，喺我哋每一個基督徒，聖靈都喺我哋每一個基督徒嘅心中。
From the moment that you place your faith in Jesus Christ, from when you become a Christian, the Spirit of God takes up residence in your life.
由我哋信賴依靠耶穌基督為我哋嘅救主嗰一刻咧，聖靈已經喺我哋嘅心裏邊喺存在㗎啦。
And we can read about this in Romans chapter 8 that says, the Spirit of God lives or dwells in you.
嗱，喺羅馬書第8章第9節嗰度話俾我哋聽，神的靈住在你們心裏。
I really messed up our PowerPoint today. Sorry, everybody.
It's okay.
All right, so first of all, the Spirit lives in every believer, but the Spirit lives in every believer permanently.
嗱，第一樣啦，就係話俾我聽咧，聖靈喺我哋嘅心裏邊啦，我哋每一個人都擁有噶啦。唔單止咁，第二樣嘢咧係永遠地擁有嘅，係一路都喺我哋生命裏邊嘅。
So Paul's not saying in the Bible, the message of the Bible doesn't say, hey, you can be a Christian and then lose the Spirit.
嗱，聖經唔係咁樣教我哋。嗱，聖經唔係話哦，你做咗基督徒咧就有聖靈啦，咁即係但係咧，或者你做錯啲嘢咧，或者你做啲某啲嘢咧，就冇失去咗聖靈呢個概念嘅。
In John chapter 10, we read about the security that we have as Christians.
嗱喺約翰福音第10章第28至29節嗰度咧，係話俾我哋聽呢個確實地擁有嘅聖靈嘅，一路都擁有嘅。
So first of all, the Spirit of God lives in us. He lives in us permanently, but we also can find from the Bible that we are possessed by or not possessed, that's a bad way to say that. We possess the Spirit. The Spirit lives in us presently, like right now.
嗱，咁其實我哋嘅重點係有幾個重點啦。我哋係擁有聖靈啦，第一樣唔單止啦係永久性啦，而且咧係現在嘅，即係而家呢一刻我哋係喺聖靈嘅聖靈喺被聖靈擁有嘅一刻。
So this filling of the Spirit is not like, okay, I became a Christian, I was filled with the Spirit, and that's not going to take place anymore. That's not what they're saying.
嗱，即係奉師個主題咧係話俾我哋聽咧，其實咧我哋係已經擁有，唔單止咁係一路都擁有嘅，唔係話我哋信主嗰一刻有聖靈啦，之後咧就遲啲冇噶啦，咁即係唔係話呢個 moment 好似嚟探親咁樣啦，嚟探咗之後咧就走咗噶啦，唔係一路都喺度嘅。
Right, and so Galatians, we have the same picture. If we live in the Spirit, then let's walk in the Spirit, or continue living and walking every single day in the Spirit.
嗱喺加拉太書第5章第23節咧，嗰個概念咧係一個其實嗰啲字嗰啲動詞咧係一個一路追隨一路繼續嘅動詞，即係一路咁樣做嘅，唔係話一次性嘅。所以佢哋話啦，我哋靠住聖靈行事咧，唔係話就係呢一刻，唔係遲啲又一刻，係一路咁樣嚟靠住聖靈嘅行事嘅。
And then fourth and finally, this is something that we don't initiate. We don't fill ourselves with the Spirit. It's almost as if it's a passive event that happens to us.
嗱喺呢度第四項啦，咁呢個係可以話係被動性被充滿嘅，咁我哋陣間都會解釋一下嘅。咁但係咧最主要咧係唔係我哋呢啲係神喺我哋生命裏邊動工嘅。
Now, when we're thinking of filling something up, like we're talking about filling of the Spirit, maybe our mind will go to filling a glass with water, right?
嗱，有陣時我哋話被神充滿啦，或者有陣時我哋會諗到被神充滿嘅時候咧，我哋諗到一杯水咁樣啦，好似一杯水倒滿咗杯水啦。
I get a glass, I fill it. It can only contain a certain amount, right?
嗱，咁我哋或者諗好似一隻杯咁啦，咁一隻杯倒滿水嗰陣時候咧，就淨係得到咁多啫嘛，隻杯幾大就有幾多啦，係咪咧？
But that can't be what Paul is saying here in Ephesians chapter 5.
但係其實呢個唔係保羅所想我哋諗到嘅概念喎。
How can I continuously pour water into a glass and it never fill up, basically?
嗱，佢其實我哋因為個難題係咧，我哋點樣可以一路倒又倒唔滿嘅咧？
Surely at some point we would reach a capacity and we couldn't have any more of the Spirit, right? If that's the metaphor we want to use.
嗱，其實咧最主要咧係如果我哋想用呢個水杯嘅形容詞咧，其實呢個係唔吻合啊，可以咁講啦。我哋唔應該用水杯嘅概念嚟思想呢個被充滿嘅概念啫。最主要我哋係咁講。
So maybe that's not the best way for us to think about this indwelling, this filling of the Spirit.
好啦，所以或者我哋唔用杯啦，我哋或者要用其他嘢嚟思考，幫助我哋明白呢個概念啦。
So perhaps a better way to think of it would be how wind fills the sails of a sailboat. 嗱，
或者比較幫助我哋明白多啲咧，係好似一個帆船嘅嗰個帆啦，咁就係俾風帶住嘅吹，當有風吹嗰陣時候咧，就即係成個帆充滿咗啦，係咪啊？
In order for a sailboat, I'm not a sailor, but I kind of understand the general idea that in order for a sailboat to move, there's got to be wind.
嗱，呢個帆船如果佢想喐嘅話咧，我哋知道啦，係需要乜嘢啊？需要風噶嘛。咁係需要風嚟，即係吹滿嗰個帆先至可以喐到噶嘛。
The sailboat can move when the wind fills the sails and it pushes or repels that boat forward.
當一個帆船被即係嗰個帆被風吹住嗰陣時候，你去滿載嗰陣時候，咪船咪喐咯，咪船有動力咯。
And when the wind stops, well, then the boat stops, right?
如果風停嗰陣時候，船亦都停噶啦。
And I think the idea, well, perhaps one idea that Paul is trying to communicate is that we can walk, we can have a worthy walk when our sails or when our life is filled every moment with the Spirit.
嗱，其實或者我哋可以用呢個比喻嚟幫助我哋明白，我哋點樣行事為人都係充滿着聖靈呢。我哋就好似一個帆船咁，我哋個帆就一路都係被聖靈推動着嘅。我哋係即係擁有喺度接受緊聖靈嘅推動嘅。
It's like the energy of our lives, the power of our lives to live right it's only possible for us to live the way that Paul is describing is if we are being propelled or filled daily with God's Spirit.
咁其實都係一樣嘅。如果我哋係想活出得到神喜悅嘅生命，我哋係活出一個追求神嘅生命，我哋又好似一個帆船咁樣，每一日我哋都要被呢個聖靈推動充滿我哋，呢個係我哋嘅能力，呢個係我哋嘅能力嘅來源就係聖靈。
The same way a sailboat can't go anywhere without any wind, we can't live right if we're trying to do it by ourselves.
好似一個帆船，如果冇風嘅，係周圍都去唔到。相同地，我哋作為基督徒嘅，如果我哋唔依靠聖靈嚟活着嘅呢，我哋係好難都有即係唔係話做唔到嘢，但係呢好難係活出一個得到神嘅喜悅嘅生命。
But another way for us to understand more fully this filling is the idea not just of a sailboat, but more maybe permeation or saturation.
另一個概念啦，亦都係想幫大家明白呢個充滿嘅概念呢，就係另一個形容詞嚟幫助大家呢，就係一個滲透啦。
And here my mind goes to salt.
我如果想講滲透嗰陣時候呢，我就諗到呢就係鹽呢樣嘢啦，或者煮食嘅時候，sorry。
Salt permeates, it saturates.
其實鹽咧係有滲透能力噶嘛。
If I want my food to taste better, I add salt.
如果我想即係我啲食物好味啲，有美味啲嘅話，我係要點樣啊？我要加啲鹽噶嘛。Now
I've said it a lot of times before, but I am not a good cook.
我之前講過噶啦，我唔係一個最叻嘅廚噶啦。
So for the next few seconds, don't assume that I actually know what I'm talking about.
咁講關於煮食魚嘢食嗰陣時候咧，我就唔係即係你唔係專家嚟嘅嚇，所以唔好咁樣諗啊。
I'm trying to improve. I'm trying to get better at cooking food.
我而家係學緊點樣嚟做一個學識點樣煮得好啲啦。
So I'm trying to pick up any tips that you might have.
咁我都係想多啲 tips 嚟學識點樣煮好啲嘅。
But just recently at Christmas, I made a turkey.
喺聖誕節嗰個時候咧，我就做咗一個火雞啦。
Not that
Is this a picture?
Not that turkey.
呢個唔係現貨嚟㗎嚇，呢個係參考㗎咋嚇。
But something I've learned that you should maybe do when you're making a turkey like this is not just take it out of the fridge, put it in a tray, and stick it in the oven.
其實佢一樣嘢學識啦，可以話學識咧就係唔係話將隻火雞從雪櫃攞落嚟擺喺盤度，之後懟入去焗爐就搞掂㗎啦。
About a day or so before you want to actually cook the turkey, cover that turkey with salt.
有一樣嘢學識咧，就係喺煮火雞之前嗰2日咧，我要將成隻火雞咧都即係將鹽喺滿，即係 cover 晒成隻火雞嘅。
Because what that salt is going to do is it's going to, over the course of 24, 48 hours, work its way not just into the surface of the turkey, but all the way through the meat.
咁佢最主要係乜嘢啊？即係啲鹽咧喺之後嗰24至48小時裏邊咧係滲透啦，即係我哋係講醃啦，醃咗呢個雞嘅火雞。
That way, once you do cook the turkey, it's not just a dry, bland, disgusting bird like I usually make.
咁所以咧就如果你有咁做咧，就唔會焗出嚟嗰個火雞咧就唔會好乾啊、好鞋啊咁樣嘅。
So this is kind of like food science stuff that I really don't understand. Something about the salts going into the cells of the turkey, and salt retains moisture, and therefore when you cook the turkey, it's better tasting and not dry.
Yes.
Something like that.
OK。
Good luck.
Thank you 嗱，其實咧佢講咧話呢個咧係一個食物嘅科學嘅概念嚟嘅，咁咧鹽咧就可以有滲透性嗰陣時候咧就入咗啲細胞啦，咁啲細胞咧又唔知點樣嚟保存啲水分嘅，咁咧即係保存水分嗰陣時候咧，你嗰陣時咧你隻雞咧就唔會咁樣乾啦，差唔多係咁啦
Right. That's not important.
嗱，嗰個唔係重點啊！而家唔係教你 ，we're not teaching turkey cooking, right? OK， 嗱係啦，而家我哋唔係教緊你點食火雞、煮火雞嘅。
What is important is the idea of that salt permeating, so that the whole thing is flavored.
嗱，最主要個概念，我想大家明白咧，就係呢個鹽就滲透咗，好似醃咗個火雞嘅時候，所以咧嗰個味道咧就係即係越好完美嘅。
I could add salt afterwards, and that would be okay. That would change the flavor a little.
嗱，我係可以即係煮完之後加喺上面加少少鹽，係會改變嘅。
But it would only be on that surface level.
但係淨係喺表面上改變嘅啫。
What we're talking about is total permeation, total saturation.
我哋而家係嘅思想咧，係完全滲透、完全醃好嘅。
To be filled with the Spirit is to be fully saturated. Every bit of us, not just the surface where people see us on Sundays, but every bit of us saturated, permeated, filled with the Spirit.
嗱，被聖靈充滿就好似係即係完全被聖靈滲透我哋一樣，好似即係被聖靈醃咗我哋咁樣，唔係淨係表面上係即係星期日表面上咁樣俾大家睇到，相反地係我哋每一個行為啊，每一個思想啊，都係已經滲透咗㗎啦。
Every bit of me filled, and therefore every bit of me controlled by God.
嗱，每一個思想啊、行為啊，即係都係已經被神操縱緊嘅，被聖靈充滿，亦都係可以話係被神操縱嘅。
And that's really the idea. That's really what Paul is getting
嗱，
at.
呢個就係真係嘅我想講嘅重點，亦都係保羅所說嘅重點啦。
Pastor has talked about this before. The main idea, the main takeaway of the filling of the Spirit is that when we are filled with the Spirit, we are controlled or directed by the Spirit.
嗱，牧師之前其實都有講過一個概念㗎啦。當我哋被聖靈充滿嗰陣時候，我哋亦都係點樣啊？係被神操縱嘅。
And I can't be filled, I can't be permeated, I can't be saturated by the Spirit and myself.
嗱，但係咧，我哋唔可以同時間被聖靈充滿，亦都係點樣啊？被自己屬地嘅思想啦，或者係人嘅本性充滿嘅喎，即係兩個唔可以同時間一齊嘅喎。
It's not mostly the Spirit of God, but then a little bit of me.
亦都唔係我即係大多數都係聖靈咁，之後有少少自己嘅本性喎。
And maybe here it would be helpful to think of a glass of water.
嗱，喺呢個形容詞裏邊咧，或者即係形容呢個概念嘅時候咧，我哋真係要翻去水呢個比喻啦。
If I have a glass of clean water and I add just a little bit of mud.
嗱，如果我有一個即係好清嘅水啦，但係即係蒸餾水啦，如果我俾少少好似泥裏邊咧，
What happens to that water?
咁杯水會發生咩事咧？
It's not mostly clean anymore, is it?
嗱，其實唔係大多數乾淨喎，而家
No, it's dirty.
其實係污糟嘅。
Anytime I add a little bit of me to my walk, well, it's going to throw everything out of line.
當我喺活出呢個生命嘅時候咧，如果我加咗少少嘅自我啊，同埋我嘅本性啊，贖罪嘅本性嘅時候咧，其實亦都係唔係一個得到神嘅喜悅嘅選擇。
Just a little bit of me trying to be in control of how I live means I'm not walking worthy.
其實當我自我性強，而且即係呢個追求自己本性嘅，就算有少少我係想控制自己嗰陣時候咧，咁我唔係完全被神控制。
Spirit-filled living is more than just being moved along. It's more than being permeated or saturated. It's ultimately letting God be the boss.
嗱， 喺呢個被聖靈充滿嘅生命咧，係唔單止係即係完全好似帆船個帆咁樣被充滿啦，唔單止亦都好似係被滲透啦，而且咧另一個重點咧係完全地被神控制。
If I want to walk worthy, if I want to walk in humility, if I want to walk in love, I give up all control. I surrender everything that I want to His control.
嗱，如果我真係想活出得到神喜悅嘅路咧，呢條路包括啦係與福音相稱啦，行出呢個愛啦，呢個係有智慧嘅路咧，我係要將我嘅生命完全地一切地交給神嘅。
When Paul says, be filled with the Spirit, he's saying, surrender your agenda, surrender your plans, surrender your talent, your money, your time, everything that you have, and let God be in control.
嗱，喺呢度保羅寫話，你們要被聖靈充滿咧，最主要嘅概念咧係叫我哋乜嘢啊？將一切獻上。
Being filled with the Spirit is the how. How do I be the husband, the wife, the father, the mother, the daughter, the son, the student, the worker? That's how I live and do those things.
嗱，其實呢個被聖靈充滿咧，係幫助我哋明白咧，我哋點樣做一個爸爸，我哋點樣做人啊。其實無論係丈夫啦、太太啦、爸爸媽媽啦，其實呢個係教我哋咧，我哋點樣嚟行事為人咧？我哋透過咩途徑咧？就係被聖靈充滿，我哋先至可以活出呢個。
I can be the person that God wants me to be when I just say, God, you're the boss.
其實當我哋話神啊，你做揸 fit 人啦，你係我哋嘅老闆啦，我哋要跟從你啦。當我哋係即係放手，將我哋嘅生命放手出嚟嗰陣時候咧，我哋先至係真正活着神所喜悅嘅生命。
Spirit-filled living is a total surrender of everything that we have or are to Jesus Christ, to God, and letting Him direct our steps.
呢個被聖靈充滿嘅生命就係將一切獻上俾神，將我哋嘅所有嘅思想啊、追求啊，都係交喺神手度。
If I want to walk worthy, if I want to honor God, I need His Spirit to, yes, be the energy, to fully saturate me. But that means I've got to empty myself of my agenda, of myself, and give control.
喺度啦，再一次啦，其實喺當我哋想被聖靈充滿，活出呢個生命嘅時候咧，我哋要被聖靈充滿嘅時候，我哋好似隻杯咁，我哋要倒走我哋自己嘅自我嘅追求、自我嘅思想、自我嘅智慧，而令到聖靈可以充滿我哋生命裏邊。
When I do, well then, just like our memory verse, that's when transformation happens.
而且當我哋做出可以將自己倒走嗰陣時候，將聖靈充滿嘅時候，我哋就可以活着我哋今個月嘅金句，我哋真係可以乜嘢啊？有一個改變。
Let's pray.
我哋一齊禱告。
Father, we thank you for your Spirit.
主，我哋感謝你賜俾我哋聖靈。
Pray that today and tomorrow and the rest of this week in our lives that we would continually be filled with the Spirit but empty of ourselves.
求你亦都係幫助，無論係今天啦、明天啦、今個禮拜亦都好啦。求你幫助我哋係被聖靈充滿嘅，而且將我哋咧係倒開嘅。
Help us to surrender everything that we want to your control.
求你幫助我哋將我哋一切嘅都獻上俾你。
Pray this in Jesus' name.
呢啲係奉主耶穌得勝嘅名求，阿門。